Podcasts.
5 Live Boxing.
Tommy Fury against Jake Paul was billed as the truth. And after 8 rounds, we got the truth. The truth is that the traditional boxer knew just enough to get the decision. It was 8 solid rounds. There was blood, there was a knockdown, points were deducted. It was everything we wanted. A proper fight. That's the truth. This is 5 Live Boxing from Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. So I've just left the ringside area. People are filing away. The stands are suddenly empty. All of the drones have vanished. Even Michael Buffer's left to go back to his chalet. But there are 2 professionals still here. The dynamic duo from ringside commentary this evening. Darren Fletcher and, of course, former world champion and Olympic bronze medalist Richie Riddle. Richie, I'm going to come to you first. We had 8 rounds. It was gripping. It was enthralling. It was raw. But you couldn't take your eyes off it.
No, you couldn't. I thought it was a thoroughly entertaining contest. And let's not forget, one's had 8 fights, one's had 6 fights. Now, for 2 pro boxers who are fairly inexperienced, that was a really entertaining fight. Kept you on the edge of your seat. You're always thinking that Jake Paul might land that big shot, but Tommy might. Tommy worked well with his jab, boxed sensibly on the outside. For me, that was a great fight to watch.
And Fletch, I thought, I'm interested because you were closer to me and I was 15 feet away, standing in the middle of the Jake Paul fan club, which was quite fun, as you can imagine. I was the only person without my phone above my head, but that's okay. That's all part of the experience. You were actually there on the canvas. I thought it was a relief at the end, the mutual respect between everybody in the gangs, both gangs.
Yeah, we were slightly concerned that wouldn't be the case. I think everybody was, before
Absolutely.
the fight, because of the animosity that's been bubbling for 2 years. This is not just in Saudi Arabia this week. This has been bubbling ever since this fight was first being talked about.
It got worse in Saudi Arabia, if anything.
Yeah.
It intensified this week.
And I'll let you into a little secret, and I didn't mention this until now. There was a hastily convened meeting that Richie and I were almost involved in, and they actually moved away because we could hear them. Extra security was put on around the ring because they didn't want certain people jumping in and maybe causing a commotion depending on how the result of the fight went, whether there was controversy. But I just thought it was a fantastic spectacle. It was what it was. And I think anybody who wants to try and criticise the fight is barking up the wrong tree because both of them gave everything. Jake Paul proved that he can stand in there and mix it with a legitimate boxer. And Tommy Fury showed enough, I thought, over the 8 rounds, under the pressure he was under. And we didn't know he felt that pressure until the post-fight interview, and it all came out. Tears in the ring, very emotional.
You saw the relief on his face when he was jumping around.
But to be able to perform to that level under that pressure is hugely significant for him.
Yes, it is, and you could see that in the emotion, and that's what it's meant to. Like you said, Fletch, it's built up over the last couple of years. But here, this week, it's had that feel of a world title fight at the weigh-in. If anything, Tommy Fury was a little bit pumped up. You could see that he'd really prepared for the fight.
That was at the weigh-in,
but psychologically...
I thought he looked quite pensive coming into the ring tonight.
Yes, he did.
A little bit of edge had gone off him a little bit, Rich.
Yes, because the edge was certainly on him in the weigh-in, and when they had the face-off, you could see he was riled. And you know what? After that, Jake Paul probably thought, I've got him.
Yeah.
He's going to come at me. Yeah. And because I've always said, I spoke to Fletch about it many times, the only way that Jake Paul wins this fight for me is if Tommy Fury makes mistakes over that front foot and he walks onto one of those right hands.
He barely made a mistake.
He didn't make any mistakes.
And we'll talk about him getting dropped in the game. I'm just going to add something to that. We're all dads here. The pressure, the emotional pressure of leaving your baby behind. The baby's like 3 weeks old now, or 4 weeks old, okay? You've got this enormous fight, and you've got your brothers around you, including Big Tyson, and your dad who's running the show. But it's still going to be you, and you're not stupid enough. You know it's going to be you, and you're 23 years of age, Fresh. That's some pressure, son.
It is, and we're all stood here now, and not one of us have criticised Jake Paul for losing the fight. But you imagine what the conversation would have been had Jake Paul had his arm raised and Tommy, the legitimate boxer, loses the fight. The narrative is completely different. We're stood here now as sensible people saying, look, really enjoyed it. Yeah. It was what it was. Tommy was better, deserved the decision. You imagine what the narrative would have been if he would have lost. And that's why we saw that emotion at the end.
And Steve, it was good for the sport of boxing.
Yes.
We needed that, to be quite honest.
And I don't care how raw it was and how they didn't know how to move their feet, to counter the shots, the openings that were there, the thousands of openings openings that we could see. I didn't care. They had barely anything left at the end. Tommy was cut by his left eye in the 7th, I believe. It was bleeding throughout the 8th. He was dropped from a good jab, still a knockdown. Dropped from a good jab, with like, 2 minutes plus of that last round left. In an area, in territory he'd never been in. I mean, that's commendable. And I've already spoken to people saying, oh, it was rubbish. Listen, it was rubbish compared to watching Shakir Stevenson or Gervonta Davis or Ryan Garcia, but it wasn't rubbish when you're talking about two novices. Rich, it was fantastic.
It was a good fight to watch at the level that they're at and what they gave. And yes, there were glimpses, some good glimpses of Tommy boxing at range. There were some good glimpses of Jake Paul, with that right hand over the top. He was threatened with it. He was dangerous. But yes, at the level that they're at, it was a competitive fight. It was fought at a good pace. They tired. Probably that's down to nervous energy as well. Yeah, and that's probably down to nervous energy as well. So they've had to handle that. They've probably never gone through that before. There was a lot of questions that had to be answered, and they got answered here tonight.
I did start to panic a wee bit when I saw the first point deducted, because I couldn't see what that was for.
Yeah.
I then thought, well, if this was a game at Old Trafford, they'll get a penalty at the other end. So I then knew that
there was one
was coming the other way, and we got that. Then I thought, now they're going to try and drag VAR into it, because don't forget we had that tonight as well, which I can't fathom. But I thought in the end, the one judge's card was slightly bizarre, but the other two were pretty much spot on. That's the way Richie had it. Carl Froch in our studio had it by 3. So I think the general consensus was that's what it was. I'm just glad you didn't get, it's a draw, it's a rematch, and we're all stood here disappointed going, oh, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I'll live with the split because that happens, and they're humans. And what I tell you what I liked is I did like the way they were during the interviews. Both Jake and Tommy. In fact, we can hear them now. Let's have a little listen.
For the past 2.5 years, this has always consumed my life. Broke rib, denied access, and everybody thought I was running scared. Tonight, I made my own legacy. I am Tommy Fury. I want to dedicate this fight to my new baby girl, Bambi at home, my missus. I love you, I can't wait to see you. This fight was for you. This belt is for you, Bambi, I love you.
This was no easy fight. It took everything in you, all your heart, grit, and soul, even to get up off the canvas. How much was inside you when you stood up off the canvas and finished this fight?
All the way through these 2.5 years, I had a dream, I had a vision I would win this fight, and no one believed me. Now I can stand up and everybody can take note. It was my first main event, 23 years old, I had the world on me, I had pressure on my shoulders, and I came through.
I know your goal is to be a world champion, but this belt around your shoulders right now must be awfully sweet.
This to me is a world title fight. I trained so hard for this. This was my destiny, this was my fate. I want to thank Saudi Arabia for having me. I love you all, thank you all for turning out. We did it! We did it!
Now we know that Jake Paul has a rematch clause. He may want to do this again. If so, will we see you again in this ring for another war of this magnitude?
100%. This is my first main event. I'm only going to go stronger, I'm only going to go bigger, and I'm only going to go better. There's a lot of nerves coming into here. I override that. If he wants a rematch, bring it on.
All respect to Tommy, he won. Don't judge me by my wins, judge me by my losses. I'll come back. I think we deserve that rematch. It was a great fight, a close fight. I don't know if I agree with the judges. I got a 10-8 round twice. So it is what it is, but this is the boxing. And look, I've already won in life, man. I've already won. I've won in every single way. I have an amazing family, amazing friends, amazing work ethic. I've made it farther than I ever thought that I would. So this is definitely a humbling experience. I'll take it on the chin, get back in the gym, and we can run it back because I think we put on an amazing show for the fans tonight.
Let's talk a little bit about technical boxing. You got 2 knockdowns, you stuck behind the jab, you were in there for every minute of every round. How much of your training and strategy was successful tonight?
Honestly, I felt flat. I got sick really bad twice in this camp, injured my arm, so it wasn't my best performance, but I lost. I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying it wasn't my best performance. I felt a little flat, and like I said, we're gonna come back and get that W. Don't judge me by my wins, judge me by my losses. I'm gonna come back stronger.
You have a rematch clause. Are you ready to be a real boxer? Call that rematch out and do this one more time.
100%, let's run it back.
So that was the two of them in the ring afterwards. You could hear the emotion in Tommy's voice. And I thought Jake Paul said the right things. Well, that's what Jake Paul does. He says the right things. When he came out with that great line there and what he said, because it was a bit chaotic at the time he was saying it, he said, don't judge me by my victories, judge me by my losses. I like that, Rich.
You know
and
what?
then give me a rematch, by the way.
Absolutely. I was really impressed when he said that because, and you know what? Not only that, Fletch, I think that when he said that, that shows you that he's serious about the game and he wants to be a professional, looked upon as a professional boxer. He wants a career in professional boxing. And what I've seen tonight is I think he's definitely got a future as a professional fighter.
You two know way more about this sport than I'll ever know. But the one thing he couldn't do tonight was consistently land a power shot. And I think when he gets back in the gym, they'll look at the film tonight and BJ Flores is going to work with him and say, right, when you're in that situation again, this is what you do. This is a step along the road. We've found a weakness. We're going to work on that. When you get back in there again, you'll be better for it.
Fletcher's hit on something there, and he didn't use the word, but he's absolutely nailed it. They both need, in my opinion, I'll throw this to you, Rich, and we'll do the Rio story in a moment, because I know you work obviously alongside Rio, so did he, and it's a really funny story. I tell you what they both need to do when they go back in the gym is work on some basics. And I really mean that nicely. Because at the moment, in the gym, on the pads, and when they're sparring with some guys that are not moving, they can throw unbelievable combinations. But in a real life situation, Fletch, with the pressure and the stress on them, they can't do it. And that's what came out tonight. So you saw Tommy looking for the uppercut, but under that pressure with that man coming at you, you can't find your feet. I tell you, that fight could have been won by either of them tonight with 5 more jabs around, simple jabs around, and a little bit of head movement, Rich.
Yeah. Well, exactly. We all know that, you know, a power puncher with that right hand over the top, you've got to get the opponent to come forward because you don't knock a guy out if he's moving away from you. You have to get him coming forward. So how do you do that? Few feints maybe, but you work with your lead hand. The more work you do with the lead hand is then you get the opponent to respond to that.
And walk onto the backhand.
And then walk onto the backhand. So yes, he needs to work on a few basics. But yeah, I mean, listen, and Tommy Fury definitely has got to work a little bit more on the inside, some inside work. His uppercut, I thought, occasionally was a good punch, and we could see more of that. But overall, he got the tactics right, and both of them have learned tonight about tactics, and probably Jake Paul, in defeat, has probably learned a little bit more in that, you know, I thought he's going to walk onto a shot, I've got to do something different, I've got to do something better, and I just want to make this point, Steve, right?
We're not going to rush here, we're going in about 2 hours' time.
Someone said to me before the fight, someone out there said to me, Jake Paul is going to win the fight. He's going to win the fight by knockout because he's had top-class sparring, right? Now, listen to this. I says, he's had top-class sparring. I says, mate, how much has he been paying those sparring partners?
Richie, that's terrible of you to say. That's
Steve,
a horrible insinuation.
Because I said, do you think then these top-class sparring partners are going to knock him out in the spar? They're going to earn a few quid and they're going to carry him a bit, make him feel better, and the next day,
and be invited
and the
back
next
for the
week,
next camp.
and the next week after that.
And he pays good money. And he pays good money. Fletcher, I'm just going to divert it. You know what happened when Richie trained Rio Ferdinand? Rio was going to get you know what happened? So Rio comes to the gym and he goes in the mirror and he throws a 78 punch combination, switches around, does an Ali shuffle, throws 7 right hands over the top, 54 left hooks. Richie goes, hold on a minute, come here, son. Gets him, looks at his feet, sticks a glove underneath his right elbow, says that glove better be there in the next half hour, and he has Rio throwing left jabs only for 2 weeks. Rio went crazy, but it worked a treat.
500
honestly.
jabs.
Yeah, listen to this. 500 jabs. No quadruple left hook, 17 right uppercuts. Rio had to go back to the basics. And that's the way you teach a kid to play football.
Yeah, he texted me mid-fight, Rio, and he said, I'd fancy myself against either of these. With Richie in my corner.
Oh, yeah.
With Richie in my corner.
I thought I'm back in business.
So first of all, we thought all week cynically that it made sense to have a rematch with a fight that was, quotes, that close, especially with Jake scoring the knockdown in the last round and one judge giving it to him. I think a rematch is a prospect.
Bunce, in a mad way, it's probably the best fight for both of them because if you're Tommy Fury now, you come down from the high of winning tonight. Who's your next opponent? Because he's not ready to go and fight for a British title or anything like that.
Great point, Fletch.
And you look at Jake Paul, he's got to find out whether he's got any better based on what he's learned from tonight. So fighting each other at the novice stage they're at still, even though they've both learned a lot tonight, it's probably the right fight for them, again, at this stage.
And you can certainly build it, can't you? Because Jake Paul can, in the press conferences and the build-up to the fight, listen, I know where I went wrong. This time I'm going to put it right. You building up like that. Tommy Fury, as you say, he's not ready yet for a British title.
No.
And you know what? John knows that as well. His old man knows that.
John knows that. The people around Jake Paul know that. I mean, I think you can generously rate them in the sort of top 250 in the world, about 250 and 251 or two. I think you can do that. In Great Britain, I don't think you can rate Tommy inside the top 20 or so. But that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with him, because that's where a 9-bout prospect should be. I've got no problem with that.
Do you not think as well, though, Steve, that there is the danger that you come down from the high of tonight?
Absolutely.
And if all of a sudden you're down the card somewhere against a journeyman again, then are you going to develop? Are you going to progress? Are you going to hit the heights? Is it going to set you back? They've got to now put him in. He's had a taste of this tonight. The last thing he wants now is to go and go bottom of the card again.
They've got a belt. The WBC generously supplied a belt, okay?
Yeah. What a nice belt it was.
What a beautiful belt it was too. So they've got a belt. You go to the rematch is a 10-rounder. We're back here, or Abu Dhabi, but we're somewhere in the Middle East. Why not? I don't think either of... for a start, Jake Paul doesn't need to go away and rebuild, because he can have the rematch. Tommy doesn't need, as you absolutely correctly pointed out, Fletch, to be third on the undercard when his brother defends his world titles in May or June or July.
No use to him now.
Bang! Give us 10 rounds. Let's get them back in the ring. It's that simple. And
by the way, a 10-round fight might be different to an 8-round fight.
And a few improvements from Jake Paul, you never know.
Oh, Fritchie, so listen, we need to...
He can bang the kid.
Yeah, no, he can bang.
So he's always going to have a chance in the fight.
And improvements in him. You can see improvements in him because he's dedicated to what he's doing.
I think we need to point out at this point that even though it looks like we're hyping something that was amazingly hyped anyway, let's point this out. None of us here sitting here with that giant flag the size of a football pitch up there. The stars are still out. It's coming up to 2 o'clock in the morning. None of us are saying that what we've witnessed was a masterclass. It was an event, admittedly, and it was two novices who don't know an awful lot giving every single thing they had in their tank. And I'm going to say, of course it's unfair that those two novices are sharing $20 million, but at the same time they're sharing that $20 million because they promoted themselves away from boxing and they promoted themselves in boxing. Look, and we're not saying that these two guys, let's get this absolute, sometimes you've got to point things out really clearly. We're not saying that these two guys are the best two cruiserweights in the world, because they're not. Let's get that clear.
Steve, I don't want to sound harsh, but this was a pay-per-view event tonight. You don't have to watch it if you don't want to. You don't have to buy it if you don't want to. It was what it said on the tin, and it did what it was supposed to do. It was entertaining. It was competitive. If you take it for what it was, then you would say that's everything it needed to be. And I think if people don't like it, you don't have to be involved in it. This is not something that's being forced onto people. But anybody who was here this week and anybody who did take the time to have a look at it and watch it, I think they'll have enjoyed it. And I'd be fascinated to know what the pay-per-view numbers were compared to a Tyson Fury world title fight. I would think they'll be astronomical. I think a lot of people will have bought it, a lot of people will have watched it, and a lot of people would do it again if it is on again, and that tells you whether it's worth doing or not.
And I think the two of them would have endeared themselves to people. Okay, listen, we'll take a little break now. When we come back, we'll get the closing thoughts from you two if we can. We'll also hear, because I've managed to track him down as he left the ring, from Gypsy Johnny Fury, the father of both Tyson and the victorious Tommy. And then a short piece I did a bit earlier on with Deontay Wilder. What a time to be a boxing fan. We'll be back in a second or two. Hello. Fury and Deontay Wilder coming up in a moment. Let's get the closing thoughts from the fellas. The week itself, Darren Fletcher, the week itself here in Saudi.
I always said that I'd like to go to, if I could roll the clock back, I'd go to a big Vegas fight and I'd listen to Frank Sinatra being introduced at ringside and various people there. I got a little taste of that here. You looked around the arena, Mike Tyson was here, Cristiano Ronaldo was here, Deontay Wilder came rolling into town, Tyson Fury was here, Kevin Hart was here. And anybody who wanted to be here made a decision to come, and it felt big, it felt glamorous. The weigh-in was sensational. The palace was beautiful. What a setting for that. The weather's been outstanding. The people of Saudi Arabia have given everybody a wonderful welcome and have made our stay as comfortable as it could possibly be. But this felt big, it looked big, and it was big. And I think that boxing needs this. I think, yeah, boxing needs classic fights. Boxing needs a really good world heavyweight champion. Boxing needs characters. But it also, like a lot of sports, needs other ways to sell itself too.
Narrative storylines.
We saw that tonight, and this can only be good. I think there'll be more of it. And if there is more nights like this with people boxing who are legitimately able to do it, as we saw tonight from Jake Paul again, Tommy, we knew would put up a show. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and if there is a rematch, I'm hoping I'm there because I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Listen, we'll make sure the three of us are there. So, Rich, the people that are clogging my timeline on Twitter, stopping me over the last 2 or 3 weeks and saying this is the worst thing for boxing.
Turn off notifications, Bunce. I did it a long time ago.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Rich, they're being over dramatic, aren't they? This wasn't the end of boxing here tonight in Saudi Arabia, was it?
It's a one-off. It's a one-off event, but
to the rematch.
To the rematch. But boxing hasn't let itself down here tonight, Steve, because I thought the standard of boxing for two guys at the level that they're at was pretty good.
And we don't
you
get
can't
to see it.
complain
Let's get that
with
right. We don't get to see an unbeaten 8-fight guy against an unbeaten 6-fight guy. We don't get to see it. Every single week we're at shows around the country on different channels. The 8-bout guy's fighting a guy who's come over from somewhere or travelled up from somewhere who's got no intention of trying to win.
Yep.
He's won 4,
right.
but he's lost his last 17 on the spin.
Yeah.
So we saw tonight stuff that you don't see in British rings.
Can I also say really briefly as
Go
well,
on,
Rich,
son.
before you come back in, and that is that if everybody's just judging tonight solely on Paul versus Fury, let's have a little word for the cruiserweight fight before that.
Yes.
Badu Jack and Makabu. I mean, that was a heck of a fight. That was a real tear-up that went one way and then it went the other and then it went back again. It wasn't just a case tonight of people who were of that standard. There was a cracking cruiserweight fight for the WBC title on the line as well that didn't let anybody down.
No, Badu Jack adding to his super middleweight world title, his light heavyweight world title, pulling off a very rare triple and winning tonight in the final round, the 12th and final round, winning the WBC title by stopping Ilunga Makuba. Yeah, that was an event.
Becoming a three-weight world champion.
That was an event. Darren Fletcher, Richie Woodall, what a pleasure and what a delight. Listen, fellas, thank you very much. I'm going to leave the boys there. Now, when the fight finished, the first person Gypsy John saw as he came out the ring was me. I stuck my microphone underneath his mouth and just let Gypsy John roam and chat and talk.
I knew it was going to be a hard fight, Steve. We trained for an hard fight. But the kid was carrying the weight of the world on his back.
Yes.
He was going to get left in Saudi. He was going to have to change his name. It's been going on 2.5 years. His whole life was on the line. And this kid dug deep. He showed balls like his older brother.
He did.
And I'm proud of him.
And he had to, John.
He had to. Jake Paul was good. He took some murderous punches. He was unorthodox. You couldn't see the punches coming half the time. These guys are hard to beat. And Jake Paul come to win. Yeah. But listen, he got beaten by better man.
And John, you had to talk to him in the corner. You had to get him to come out after about the fourth or fifth round.
Yeah, steady him down. I said, look, steady your ship. Take it to him. Don't let him get on top of you. Give him ground. He'll make a fight of it. But a kid's super fit. You know, what can you say? He come to win. And we was up against it, wasn't we?
And John, he's still a beginner. He's still a novice. He gets cut. He gets dropped in the last round. You must be proud.
Yeah, man. He gets up and I said, listen, don't let this man stand in front of you on greatness.
Go on, John.
He said, Dad, I won't. I said, go out there and die for son. He said, I've got it. I've got it. I whispered in his ear, I said, if you've got to die in here, die, boy, and I'm proud of you. And he went up there and done what he done. All I can say, and listen, big fights can only happen in this great country, Saudi Arabia. It's the best country in the world. It's the best in the world.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much indeed. Pleasure, John. Pleasure. So that was Gypsy John when we left the ring. Now I've made my way backstage and I'm in actually the dressing room. Tommy's having his final medical and I'm with Tyson, resplendent in green. Tyson, I've got to tell you, for two novices, they had nothing left to give. They left every single thing in the ring.
Yes, a fantastic fight, you know, very proud of Tommy and very, very proud of Jake. They did a fantastic fight for the world and the biggest stars in the world turned out. Mike Tyson, Ronaldo, myself, Wilder, everybody was ringside to watch these two, so fair play to them. 10,000, a massive production in Saudi Arabia. It was unbelievable. Very, very proud of Tommy.
Tice, it was obvious. It was obvious that Tommy was under pressure. He's only 23 years of age. He's a boy. He's just become a father a few weeks ago. He was under pressure, and that makes the win even more unbelievable.
Yeah, most definitely. You know, he can be very proud of himself, and his daughter can be proud of that win and what he's just got for them there, the amount of money that he's got for their future. So it was a brilliant performance from Tommy, and I'm very, very proud of him.
And when you were with him coming into this week, he's been great. He's been really lively. It just seemed to me as he was walking to the rings, like, oh look, it suddenly got to Tommy. And I've seen that look sometimes.
I've seen him in here, and he was as calm as a cucumber. He was very, very relaxed, and he did what he had to do in there. He even got a cut. He went through some experiences. He got a cut. He got dropped, slipped, but he still got a count. So it was a fantastic performance from Tommy, and he had to dig deep, you know, to make sure that he got the victory.
And finally, Tyson, would you take a rematch?
100%. I'd like to see him do it again. Double money, baby. And that's what it's about at the end of the day. It's about getting money and paying your bills and enjoying your life. They're risking their lives in there and all the reputations and everything. So they should be paid really well for it, which they are. So fantastic achievements.
Tyson, thanks so much for your time. It's always a pleasure. So that's Tyson Fury. I've left him in that dressing room. They're celebrating. They're happy. Tommy will be in there in a moment, and then they will no doubt be singing. Now, Tyson, of course, said straight away, take the rematch, because that's what he did with Deontay Wilder. And he didn't settle with the rematch. He went for the trilogy. That's history. One of the greatest trilogies, not just in heavyweight boxing, but in boxing. Well, earlier, long before the fight started, I saw him at ringside, Deontay Wilder. He was resplendent in local garb. But that didn't fool me, so I went over and grabbed him. Here I am, ringside, before the main event, with Deontay Wilder. By the way, he's in great form. You look splendid. You look absolutely fantastic. I've got to tell you that. This is a special event, isn't it? The moon's out, the stars are out, and you're here.
Yeah, it's definitely a special event. It's special for to be here. The fans, the atmosphere. You know, the Middle East, they're really adopting boxing, and they really want it here. And I think this is the place now. How things revolve around, you know, I think this is the place now for all fighters should come and want to be at. The way they're structured and how they're having boxing, I'm loving every moment of it.
No, I know you're a boxing fan. I know you're loving it, but might we see you in the Middle East? It's an obvious question. I've got to ask you that.
Hands down, no doubt. There's no doubt in my mind. We're going to have it here. We're going to have a fight here. Many fights here, you know. That's another thing that's been a big blessing here, to have so many different meetings with so many different important people to structure boxing and get. They really want the big fights here for the fans. And one thing they haven't had is a knockout here. Yeah. And
they haven't had a bomb squad yet.
What great man to fit the bill for that.
It'd be nice to have a bomb squad if you don't mind me saying
Amen.
So. Now, just quickly, and I really appreciate your time. I know you've been spending some time with Mike Tyson. Have you seen Tyson Fury? Because you keep missing him, or have you actually bumped into him?
Yeah, I bumped into him.
How was that?
It was good. I gave him a hug.
I bet he did. And might we see you in a full fight with him? A dream fight in Saudi, Deontay?
Long as everybody fighting, everything's going to rotate itself. You know, one thing about the heavyweight division is very small. So with us fighters, we can easily fight 2 and 3, 4, 5 times if necessary, because of the division being so small. And then at the top, it's not so many guys at the top, you know, with the names and stuff like that. So with me, you know, in fighters, they always looking for the money, which I understand. And what better fight to make? There's no other bigger fight than Deontay Wilder is involved with anybody. So you can definitely look forward to seeing that. Maybe in the future. Maybe right here.
Maybe right here. Deontay, thanks for your time. I really appreciate your time.
Blessing.
Thank you, brother. Thank you very much. So that was Deontay Wilder there at ringside. He obviously enjoyed the fight. We all enjoyed the fight. Thanks to every single one of my guests who found some time to speak to me this evening and make this a memorable night here. Whew, it's been a busy week. This has been the 5 Live Boxing Podcast from Saudi Arabia.
Let's get ready to rumble! 5 Live Boxing.